Employee humiliates customer for wearing a MAGA hat, but is shocked to discover he's the true owner of the bar. At the Neon Flame Bar, a vibrant and welcoming space in Chicago, an ordinary night transforms into a moment of revelation that will change everything. Roy, an arrogant and inflexible bartender, believes he has total control over the bar where he works. With his critical gaze, he sees himself in a position of power, deciding who can enter and who cannot. When Marcus, a young black man wearing a hat, enters the bar, Roy does not hesitate to humiliate him, kicking him out with a disrespectful comment. What Roy doesn't know is that Marcus is actually the new owner of the place. The Neon Flame Bar is more than just a bar. It is a microcosm of society where different cultures and stories intersect. The neon lights dance on the exposed brick walls, reflecting the vibrant energy of a diverse crowd. However, beneath this lively facade, there is a palpable tension waiting to be unraveled. Roy, at 45, carries with him a legacy of prejudice, shaped by a past in a conservative suburb. His worldview is narrow, and he refuses to see beyond his entrenched beliefs. Marcus, on the other hand, is the antithesis of Roy. At 31, he is smart and patient, determined to turn the bar into an inclusive space. He carries within him the scars of a difficult past, having faced challenges and prejudices throughout his life in South Chicago. Upon inheriting the bar from his uncle, he chooses to observe before acting, but the incident with Roy forces him to reveal his true identity. The public humiliation he suffers is not just a personal attack, it is a call to action. Lisa, the waitress who witnesses the whole scene, feels a mix of shame and indignation. At 38, she's a constant presence in the bar, always trying to mediate tensions between customers and Roy. She knows well the bartender's flaws, but fears confronting him, as she knows his aggressive personality can cause more problems. Recognizing Marcus as the new owner creates an opportunity to forge an unexpected alliance. However, what starts as a simple act of kindness can turn into a battlefield against prejudice. As Marcus decides how to deal with Roy, the plot unfolds in an emotionally charged environment. He needs to face not only the racist bartender, but also his own fears and insecurities. What will Marcus do to change the bar's dynamics and promote a more welcoming environment? With Lisa's help, he devises a plan to meticulously expose Roy's prejudices, testing his stance in various situations. However, the tension rises until a final confrontation becomes inevitable. This is a tale of overcoming, of failures leading to new beginnings, and of valuable lessons about respect and inclusion. Throughout this journey, the audience will emotionally connect with Marcus, who, despite the adversities, refuses to be defeated. The story reveals how an act of courage can challenge norms and pave the way for a new future, both for the bar and for the characters who inhabit it. The Neon Flame Bar will thus be the setting for a battle, not just for a space, but for justice and dignity. The night at the Neon Flame Bar was filled with music and laughter, but the mood inside the bar had drastically changed after Marcus's humiliation. He sat in a corner, eyes fixed on the bar, trying to process what had just happened. The reality was harsh. The place he hoped to transform into a symbol of inclusion and welcome was also the stage for prejudices he knew all too well. Roy's contemptuous gaze still echoed in his mind, and the feeling of powerlessness consumed him. Meanwhile, Roy continued to serve customers, unaware of the impact of his actions. To him, the Neon Flame Bar had always been a space where he felt in control. His arrogance and disdain for differences had made him a feared and respected figure. But now, with Marcus's arrival, his position was threatened. He had no idea that the young man he humiliated was the new owner. To Roy, he was just another customer who didn't fit into his idea of appropriate clientele. Lisa, the waitress, watched the growing tension between the two. She felt caught in a dilemma. On one hand, she had her own reasons to fear Roy's wrath. He was a difficult colleague, and she knew that any confrontation could result in problems for her too. On the other hand, The injustice Marcus faced deeply troubled her. She had seen many wrong things happen in the bar, but had never dared to do anything about it. Now, however, something inside her began to change. Marcus's determined gaze inspired her to act. Marcus, for his part, decided that he could not leave the situation as it was. He knew he had to confront Roy, but the idea terrified him. Insecurity haunted him, reminding him of all the moments he felt belittled. But something within him pulsed, a voice whispering that he was more than the humiliation he had suffered. He wanted to make the Neon Flame Bar a place where anyone could feel welcome, regardless of their appearance or background. That night, while customers were having fun, Marcus approached Lisa. He needed someone he could trust, someone who understood what was at stake. "Lisa, I would like to talk to you about what happened earlier," he said, his voice trembling slightly. Lisa nodded, concerned, and led him to a more secluded table where they could talk without being overheard. "I can't believe Roy did that," she said, her indignation evident. "He's always been like this, but I didn't expect him to go that far." Marcus took a deep breath before responding. "I don't just want him to apologize. I want him to understand that his words have consequences. This bar may be a different place, but I can't do this alone." Lisa noticed the passion in his eyes. She knew he was right, but the idea of confronting Roy haunted her. What if he doesn't listen? What if he becomes aggressive? "I don't want you to get hurt." Marcus smiled bitterly, recognizing her fear. "I've been hurt many times, but this can't continue. If we don't do anything, then what are we doing here?" As the conversation unfolded, Roy, on the other side of the bar, began to feel restless. Something was changing in the atmosphere. He noticed that Lisa was more engaged with the customers, and Marcus seemed to have a new light in his eyes. Insecurity started to creep into his mind. What was he doing wrong? He had always been the center of attention, the guy who knew how to keep everything under control. But now there was a new presence, a new owner who seemed determined to change the dynamic he had so carefully established. The tension increased as Marcus and Lisa prepared for the confrontation. They knew Roy wouldn't back down easily, and the thought of confronting him made them nervous, but Marcus's determination was growing. He wanted Roy to see the error of his ways, not just for himself, but for all those who had been hurt by prejudiced words and actions. The night was becoming a silent battlefield where each fought their own internal wars. As the music played, the reality of the Neon Flame Bar became increasingly clear. It was a space full of potential, but also of challenges. Marcus knew he needed to be brave, and the friendship that was beginning to bloom between him and Lisa encouraged him. The fight against prejudice wouldn't be easy, but he was determined to take the first step, even if it meant confronting his own fears. The battle for justice and dignity was about to begin, and the Neon Flame Bar would be the setting for a vital change. Marcus sat at the table, his heart racing as if he were in a race. The air around felt heavy, almost oppressive, and he felt the need to act immediately, but anxiety paralyzed him. He looked at Lisa, who seemed as nervous as he was. What if he doesn't listen? What if he doesn't care? He thought, distressed. But the voice that encouraged him to move forward was stronger. He wanted to change the atmosphere of that place. He wanted everyone to feel safe and welcome. Lisa, noticing Marcus's internal struggle, decided she needed to be his anchor. "Let's go together, okay? I'll support you." The determination in her eyes was like a beacon, and he felt a bit stronger. But as they approached the bar, the tension in the air was palpable. Roy was there, serving customers with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He seemed unaware of the storm that was approaching. When Marcus finally positioned himself in front of Roy, his voice faltered a bit. "Roy, we need to talk." The words came out of his mouth like a whisper, but they carried a weight that couldn't be ignored. Roy turned, a look of disdain crossing his face. "About what?" "If you're here to waste my time, you can leave." The coldness in his response made Marcus hesitate, but he remembered what was at stake. He took a deep breath and insisted, "About how you've treated the customers. What you did to us, is unacceptable. Roy's expression hardened, and he crossed his arms. Look, my friend, you can have your ideas about inclusion, but this is my bar. I make the rules here. The contempt in Roy's words was like a knife cutting through the air, and Marcus felt anger rising in his chest. He thought of all the times he had felt small, invisible, and decided he wouldn't let that happen again. But you don't understand. The Neon Flame Bar can be a place where everyone feels welcome. You have the power to change that. Roy laughed, a sarcastic sound that made Marcus's stomach turn. And who do you think you are to tell me what to do? You're just a customer who doesn't fit in. Those words cut him deeply, like a direct blow to the heart. He felt a wave of despair and helplessness, but at the same time a growing determination. I'm not just a customer. I'm the new owner. The silence that followed was deafening. The laughter and music in the background seemed distant, as if the world had paused for a moment. Roy looked at Marcus in disbelief, and the arrogant expression on his face began to fade. What did you say? Insecurity began to show in his eyes, and Marcus realized he had opened a crack. I bought the bar, and I want it to be a place where everyone feels welcome, no matter who they are. The tension increased, and Lisa, watching the scene from a distance, felt her heart race. She knew this was a crucial moment, but she also feared what might happen next. Roy, with his dominant posture, seemed to be losing control. You don't know who you're dealing with. I'm the one who makes this place work. The frustration in Roy's voice was palpable, and Marcus could see that the man was feeling threatened. So tell me, Roy, Marcus began, his voice firmer. If you really believe that, why do you feel so threatened by change? The question hung in the air, and Roy hesitated, anger giving way to confusion. He didn't know how to respond. The truth is, deep down, he knew what he was doing was wrong, but the power he had kept him hostage. The idea of losing control terrified him. Meanwhile, Lisa decided it was time to act. Taking a step forward, she joined Marcus. Roy, you have a choice. You can keep going like this, but that's only going to drive customers away and destroy what we've built together. Her voice trembled, but there was a firmness that surprised everyone. Or you can join us and help create an environment where everyone feels safe. Her gaze was one of determination, and Marcus felt strengthened by her support. But Roy was not ready to give in. He crossed his arms again, his expression hardening. Do you think you can intimidate me? This is my bar, and I won't change for anyone. His refusal cut like a blade, and Marcus felt frustration rising. He was so close, yet at the same time so far away. The battle was far from won. Marcus realized he needed a plan. Then let's do a test, he said, trying to keep calm. If you're so sure that inclusion won't work, how about we have an open mic night where everyone can perform? If it doesn't work, I promise to leave. The proposal was risky, but he knew he had to try. Before we continue with this thrilling story, take a moment to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any stories. And let us know which city you are watching this video from in the comments. Roy hesitated, the idea of an open mic clearly challenging his control. He didn't want to lose the power he had, but he also didn't want to seem weak. The tension in the room was almost unbearable. Marcus felt his chest tighten as Roy pondered. He knew that regardless of the decision, that moment would change everything. The fight was just beginning, and the Neon Flame Bar, with all its stories and challenges, would become the battleground of a new era. Marcus was at an impasse. The proposal to have an open mic night seemed like a bold solution, but he had no idea how Roy would react to it. He watched Roy's face, the muscles in his jaw tightening, and knew he was about to face a decisive moment. The room was silent, with the other patrons holding their breath as if time had frozen. Roy finally broke the silence. Do you really think this will work? That people will want to expose themselves like this under your new management? His voice was laced with disdain, but for a brief moment, Marcus saw a thread of doubt in Roy's expression. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to trust the people, Marcus replied, his voice steady but with a slight tremor. If you truly believe this bar is yours, Then prove you can do something different. The tension rose, and Marcus felt his heart race. He remembered what had led him to buy the bar. It wasn't just an investment. It was an opportunity to change lives, to create a space where anyone could feel comfortable. But at the same time, he also remembered his own insecurities. What if he failed? What if the open mic turned into a fiasco? Roy, on the other hand, was in a dilemma. He had grown accustomed to seeing the Neon Flame Bar as his domain, a place where he could be king. The idea of an open mic meant opening the doors to the unknown, and that terrified him. "If you want to do this, fine," he finally said, his voice lower but still challenging. "But I'll be keeping a close eye on it. I don't want to see my bar turning into a circus." Marcus felt a mix of relief and the adrenaline of uncertainty. He turned to Lisa, who was watching the scene with a mix of hope and concern. They had taken the first step, but the road ahead was still murky. A new phase was beginning, and he knew it wouldn't be easy. As Marcus and Lisa stepped away from the bar, a whirlwind of emotions took hold of him. The joy of having made the first breakthrough was overshadowed by a new worry. What if he wasn't up to the expectations? What if the open mic attracted no one? What if Roy, in his vigilance, decided to sabotage the initiative? These questions swirled in his mind as he sat back down at the table, anxiety returning. Lisa noticed the whirlwind of thoughts consuming Marcus. "Hey," she said softly, "you did what needed to be done. Now we just need to focus on preparing for that night. Let's make it a success." She smiled, and the light in her eyes brought a bit of comfort, but insecurity still gnawed at him. "You don't understand, Lisa. I don't know if I'm capable of doing this. What if everyone turns against me? What if Roy is right?" The confession slipped from him like a whisper, and he could feel his vulnerability spreading. "I've always wanted to do something meaningful, but I always end up feeling like an imposter." Lisa placed her hand over his, a gesture of support that made him feel a little more secure. "We all have insecurities, Marcus. The important thing is that you're willing to try, and I'll be by your side, no matter what happens." She paused, allowing her words to settle. "You can't let fear determine who you are. Remember what you want. It's not just about the bar. It's about creating a space where people can connect and express themselves." The truth in Lisa's words began to penetrate the shield of doubt that Marcus had built. He remembered all the times he had hesitated in life, fearing what others would think of him. But now there was something bigger at stake. It wasn't just about him. It was about everyone who felt marginalized or invisible. And what if he could somehow help change that? As the two talked, Roy moved away to attend to other customers, but the tension still hung in the air. The next step lay before them, and Marcus began to feel a spark of determination. He knew that the open mic would require a lot of work and planning, but now he had a clear goal. He wanted the Neon Flame Bar to be a place of community, expression, and welcome. The idea of failing still haunted him, but something inside him began to change. He realized he had an opportunity in his hands, not just to transform a bar, but to transform himself as well. Looking at Lisa, he saw not just a friend, but a partner who believed in him. And with that, he decided he would not let fear guide him. He was ready to face the challenge and create the change he so desired. Now the journey was just beginning, and regardless of what happened, Marcus knew it was time to act. He was about to write a new story, and he would not do it alone. Marcus sat at the table, his mind racing with conflicting thoughts. The decision to move forward with open mic night felt more real now, but at the same time, insecurities began to creep into his heart. He looked at Lisa, who was excitedly taking notes on how they could promote the event. Her determination was contagious, but Marcus couldn't shake the weight he felt on his shoulders. In the following days, the Neon Flame Bar underwent transformations. Marcus and Lisa dedicated themselves to organizing everything, from social media promotion to preparing the space. But as they worked together, Marcus realized the pressure was mounting. He was constantly worried about the customers' reactions. What if no one showed up? What if Roy, with his critical gaze, decided everything was wrong? One afternoon, while they were setting up the makeshift stage, Marcus got lost in his thoughts. He remembered how he felt when he decided to buy the bar, dreaming of creating a place where people could connect. However, now that dream felt distant, shrouded in uncertainties and fear. "Lisa," he said, breaking the silence, "what if this is all a mistake? I've faced so many things in life, and the fear of failing is consuming me." Lisa paused and looked into his eyes. "Marcus, you're not alone. Everyone is afraid, but what matters is that you're willing to face it. Think about how many people could benefit from this space. You could be the difference they're looking for." Her words resonated in his mind, but doubt lingered. The day of the first open mic night finally arrived. The bar was decorated with low lights and a small stage set up in the corner. Marcus looked around the room, now filled with customers, friends, and curious onlookers. He felt a knot in his throat when he saw Roy in a corner, watching everything with a critical eye. His stomach churned, and anxiety nearly paralyzed him. The first performances began, and although some people were nervous, the atmosphere was one of support and enthusiasm. With each artist that took the stage, Marcus felt a mix of relief and joy. Laughter, applause, and voices of encouragement filled the space. He began to believe that it could work, but as the night progressed, insecurity resurfaced. Some customers looked impatient, and Roy didn't hesitate to make sarcastic comments during the performances, which affected some artists' confidence. Marcus realized he needed to act. "We need to keep the positive energy," he murmured to Lisa, who was by his side. "If they feel supported, everything will be fine." He took a deep breath and decided it was time to intervene. With a forced smile, he stepped onto the stage and asked for everyone's attention. "Thank you all for being here tonight. The open mic is a space for all of us to celebrate creativity and expression. Let's support each other, no matter what happens." He felt adrenaline coursing through his veins, and the energy in the room began to shift. People started to applaud and encourage the artists, and the atmosphere of tension began to dissipate. However, the night was not without challenges. After a few performances, Roy approached the stage with a challenging look. "Is this all you have? I expected more from the neon flame." The words cut like a knife, and Marcus felt everyone in the room turn their gaze to him. The pressure was intense, and for a moment he hesitated, but instead of letting himself be shaken, he decided he would not allow Roy to ruin the night. "Roy, this is the first time we're doing this. No one starts off perfect, but everyone here has the right to express themselves, and that's what matters." His voice was firm, and he felt a surge of courage. The room reacted with applause and shouts of support, and Roy stepped back, visibly frustrated. The night continued, and with each new performance, the atmosphere became more welcoming. Marcus began to realize that the true essence of the open mic was not just about the performances, but about the connection that was forming between people. He saw smiling faces, people hugging and supporting each other, and that fueled his determination. By the end of the night, Marcus was exhausted, but his heart was light. He looked around and saw that the idea that seemed so risky had become a turning point. There were still challenges ahead, and Roy would be a constant shadow, but Marcus began to understand that fear could no longer dominate him. He had a purpose, and that was greater than any insecurity. In conversations with the artists after the event, he felt more connected than ever. The stories he heard about their experiences and challenges were inspiring. Marcus realized that despite the obstacles, he had taken the first step towards a future where the Neon Flame Bar could become a true home for creativity and expression. He knew the journey was just beginning, but now, more than ever, he was willing to face whatever came next. Marcus was at a crucial point in his life. The open mic at the Neon Flame Bar was not just an event, it was an opportunity for transformation. He had faced many challenges on his journey, but this one felt the most significant. The insecurity that had accompanied him for so long had now become a shadow that followed him at every step. However, as the night progressed, and the voices of support echoed through the bar, something began to change within him. When he stepped onto the stage to defend the artists, Marcus felt a chill in his stomach, but also a spark of courage. He realized that his struggle was not just against Roy's criticism, but against the fear that paralyzed him. By asserting that every artist had the right to express themselves, he was, in fact, affirming himself. It was a moment of personal overcoming, where he began to trust more in his own words and in his role as a host. As the performances went on, Marcus noticed that the artists were opening up, sharing not only their music and poetry, but also their stories. He began to feel part of something bigger, a community that supported one another. This made him reflect on his own journey. He remembered when he decided to open the bar, full of dreams and hopes. Now, the challenges seemed small in the face of the energy that filled the space. That night, Roy's criticisms did not completely disappear, but Marcus began to see them with new eyes. He realized that flaws were part of the process. When an artist forgot the lyrics to their song, instead of feeling embarrassed, the audience laughed along, creating a moment of relaxation. Marcus understood that success was not defined solely by flawless performances or by the approval of critical people. True success lay in the connections that people were making there, in the shared joy and the courage to expose themselves. After the event, while helping to dismantle the stage, an artist approached him. "You know, your support really made a difference tonight. I was so nervous, but your attitude gave me strength." Her words touched Marcus deeply. He realized that by helping others, he was also helping himself. The friendship that began to blossom with the open mic artists was a new perspective he had never considered. He started to understand that he did not have to carry the weight of the world alone. There were people around him willing to walk alongside him. The open mic experience was more than just a night of performances. It was a new beginning. Marcus began to rebuild his vision of what it meant to have a bar. He did not want just a place of consumption, but a space for expression and welcome. This new perspective made him feel lighter, as if he were leaving behind the insecurities that once dominated him. As the weeks went by, the open mic became a regular event at the Neon Flame Bar. With each new night, Marcus felt his heart fill with hope. He was learning to apply the lessons he had absorbed. The connection with people, mutual support, and the celebration of creativity became the pillars of his new business. He understood that wealth was not just financial, but emotional and social. The true treasure lay in the stories shared and the friendships that were forming. Marcus's transformation was not instantaneous, but gradual. He began to see himself as a catalyst for change, someone who could inspire others. As the open mic nights became more popular, he also began to seek new ways to support the community. He organized workshops for young artists and created a space where everyone could express themselves freely. His experiences led him to a new wisdom. He learned that life is full of ups and downs, but each challenge brings an opportunity for growth. Marcus realized that each time he faced a fear, he became a little stronger. The insecurity that once trapped him was now just a distant memory, and he was ready to face whatever came his way. Looking at the Neon Flame Bar, now full of life and creativity, Marcus smiled. He knew there would still be challenges, but he was more prepared to face them. Fear no longer dominated him. Instead, it had become a source of motivation. Marcus had found his voice and, more importantly, his community. He was ready to continue this journey, not just as a bar owner, but as someone who had learned to trust himself and believe in the power of human connection. That night, the Neon Flame Bar was more crowded than ever. The vibrant energy in the air was palpable, and Marcus felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. The open mic, which had become a monthly tradition, was about to begin, but something more was at stake. He knew that Roy, his old critic, had promised to attend, and with that, a whirlwind of insecurities began to form in his mind. What would Roy say? Would he be able to handle the pressure? As the artist took the stage, Marcus tried to focus on the joy that the music and poetry brought to the bar, but his mind wouldn't stop wandering. He remembered Roy's cutting words, the doubts they raised about his work and his choices. The insecurity he thought he had left behind began to resurface. What if it all failed? What if he wasn't good enough? However, as the night went on, he noticed something different. Each artist who stepped onto the stage brought a piece of their soul with them. They exposed themselves, vulnerable, and the audience responded with applause and laughter, creating a warm and safe atmosphere. These moments of connection, of shared courage, began to inspire him. Marcus felt that this was the true essence of what he had created, a space where people could express themselves without fear. But when it came time for a young artist he knew well, the tension in the air intensified. The young man, nervous, began to play his song, but soon forgot the lyrics. An awkward silence filled the bar, and Marcus realized it was a pivotal moment. He could feel the gazes turning towards him, anxious, waiting for a reaction. With his heart racing, Marcus decided to intervene. He climbed onto the stage, grabbed the microphone, and looked at the young artist. "Hey, we've all been there," he said, with an encouraging smile. "Music is about connecting, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Let's support our friend." The audience began to applaud, and the young man, surprised, smiled shyly. The energy in the room changed instantly. People started singing along with him, creating a moment of unity and understanding. Marcus felt a wave of relief and pride. He had finally found his voice. He was not just a bar owner. He was a facilitator of experiences, someone who could help others shine. And as the young artist resumed his music, Marcus looked out at the audience and saw Roy sitting there, watching everything with a neutral expression. Instead of feeling fear, he felt empowered. Roy was no longer a threat. He was just another person in the midst of a vibrant community. After the performance, as everyone applauded enthusiastically, Marcus felt a transformation within himself. He had confronted his greatest fear, and in doing so not only helped an artist, but also helped himself. He realized that true success was not in avoiding failures, but in learning from them, in allowing oneself to be human and vulnerable. After the show, while helping to dismantle the stage, Roy approached him. "You did a great job tonight, Marcus," he said, with a genuine smile. "I saw how you handled the situation and thought it was admirable." Roy's words were like a balm for the insecurities that still lingered over him. The criticism that had intimidated him so much was now transforming into recognition. "Thank you, Roy. I really appreciate that," Marcus replied, feeling a new confidence in his voice. "I realize that what really matters is the connection we create, not the perfection of the performances." In that moment, an unusual friendship began to form. Marcus understood that he and Roy could be allies, not adversaries. That night, as he closed the bar, Marcus looked around and saw the space that had become more than just a place of entertainment. It was a home for artists, a meeting point for creative souls. He had learned that life is made up of ups and downs, and that each experience brings with it a valuable lesson. He had discovered the strength that was within him and how it could impact the lives of others. With a smile on his face, Marcus stepped out of the bar and looked up at the stars. He knew challenges would still come, but he was ready to face them head-on. Fear no longer controlled him. He had found his true voice and his community. The journey of starting over was just beginning, and he was eager to see where it would take him. After the intense night at the Neon Flame Bar, Marcus felt light. The weight of the insecurities that had followed him for so long seemed to have dissipated with the energy of the audience and the connection he had helped create. As he closed the bar doors, he looked inside, now empty, but still resonating with the echoes of laughter and applause. That space was not just a place of entertainment, it was a refuge, a home for artists and dreamers. In the days that followed, Marcus noticed that the atmosphere of the bar had changed. Regular patrons began to bring in new artists, and the audience was more engaged than ever. Open mic nights turned into a true event, with people arriving early to secure a spot. He watched, moved, as the vulnerability he had helped cultivate spread like a wave. People felt comfortable sharing their stories, their struggles, and their victories. One night, while Marcus was organizing a new schedule, he encountered the young artist he had supported. The young man, still a bit shy, approached him this time with a sparkle in his eyes. "Marcus, I just wanted to thank you. Your help that night really gave me confidence," he said. Marcus smiled, remembering the moment he had decided to intervene. "You had the courage to get on stage. The credit is all yours," he replied, feeling proud to have been part of that journey. The young artist began to perform regularly at the bar, and Marcus noticed his confidence growing with each performance. He had become a kind of symbol for other artists who also struggled with their insecurities. Marcus remembered how he had felt before, and it motivated him to create an even more welcoming space. He started offering music and poetry workshops where participants could practice their performances in a safe environment. Meanwhile, the relationship between Marcus and Roy also evolved. The two began to meet more often, discussing music, art, and their visions. Roy became an unexpected collaborator, helping Marcus heal the wounds of his past criticisms. "You know, Marcus, it's not easy to see the potential in someone when you're struggling with your own insecurities," Roy confided in one of their conversations. "But you did something incredible by turning your pain into strength." These words resonated deeply with Marcus. He realized that everyone faces internal battles, and that empathy can be a powerful tool for transformation. One night, after a particularly moving performance, Marcus sat with Roy at a table in the bar. "You know, I used to think that success was about being perfect, but now I understand that it's about the connection and the courage to be vulnerable," Marcus said, looking at the activity around him. "Seeing people opening up and supporting each other really changed my perspective." Roy nodded in agreement. "That's what art does. It brings people together and makes us realize we're not alone." As time went on, Marcus began to dream of expanding his vision. He thought about creating an annual art and music festival where artists of all levels could perform and share their stories. He knew it would take a lot of work, but the idea of bringing the community together in an event that celebrated vulnerability and authenticity filled him with enthusiasm. In the back of his mind, he remembered Roy and the criticism that had haunted him. Now those memories were no longer a burden, but a reminder of his own evolution. He had learned to transform pain into art and insecurity into strength. The change he had experienced was not just his, it was that of everyone around him. The Neon Flame Bar had become a beacon of hope, a place where music, poetry, and life stories intertwined, creating bonds that united the community. As Marcus looked up at the stars that night, he smiled, knowing that his journey was just beginning. He was ready to face the challenges ahead, no longer as a man alone, but as part of a vibrant and resilient community. Fear no longer dominated him. He had found his true voice and, with it, the ability to inspire others to do the same. Marcus watched the Neon Flame Bar from afar, a nostalgic smile on his lips. He remembered the nights when he felt insecure, battling the criticism that haunted him. Now, that space pulsed with life, reflecting the transformation not just of him, but of the entire community that gathered there. Every artist who took the stage brought a new story, a new perspective, and that was deeply gratifying. The open mic nights had become a symbol of overcoming adversity. The young artist he had supported was now a constant and admired presence. The spark in the young man's eyes while performing was a constant reminder that courage could blossom amid vulnerability. Marcus realized that by helping others, he was helping himself as well, and that each step taken by those who performed was a collective victory. The art and music festival he had dreamed of began to take shape. With the help of Roy and the community, Marcus organized an event that would bring together talents from all around. He wanted everyone to feel the same energy and strength he had experienced at the Neon Flame Bar. The festival was not just a celebration of art, but a tribute to resilience and the ability to start over. When the day of the festival arrived, the bar was more vibrant than ever. The streets around were filled with people of all ages, united by a greater purpose, to celebrate authenticity and courage. As he watched the audience enjoy themselves, Marcus felt a wave of gratitude. He had transformed his pain into a source of inspiration. Every laugh, every applause was a testament that success was not measured in fame or money, but in the connections formed between people. He had found his place not only as an artist, but as a mentor and friend. However, not everything was perfect. An old rivalry began to resurface when a former colleague of Marcus, who had criticized him in the past, decided to show up at the festival. Marcus felt anger rising within him. He didn't want that sacred moment to be tainted by painful memories. But instead of succumbing to hate, he decided that the best revenge would be the success of the festival. He focused on making that event a milestone. During the final performance, with the stage lit and the audience ecstatic, Marcus stepped up to the microphone. He spoke about the importance of embracing vulnerability and transforming pain into art. Today, we are not just celebrating music and poetry. We are celebrating our ability to rise up, to support one another, and above all, to forgive ourselves. Each of us has a story that deserves to be told. Marcus's words resonated in the hearts of all who were there. The atmosphere was charged with emotion and connection. The former colleague, who once seemed like a shadow, now became insignificant in the face of the community's strength. Marcus had conquered not only his insecurities, but also the need to prove himself to others. He freed himself from bitterness and surrendered to the power of empathy and love. As the lights dimmed and the audience stood in applause, Marcus felt that he had finally found his way. He had transformed into a true catalyst for change, and his friendship with Roy had only strengthened his journey. The Neon Flame Bar was not just a bar, it was a symbol of rebirth and unity. Now it invited everyone to reflect on their own journeys. What stories do you have to share? What challenges have you overcome? Join us in the comments and share your experiences. Your voice matters and can inspire others to find their strength. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more inspiring stories. The time to act is now. Let's create a space where everyone's voices can be heard and celebrated.